This program is brought to you by Emory University.
Soon after Carl Mays threw a ball that struck and killed Ray Chapman in August of 1920, the rules of the game were changed to provide some protection for batters. Spitballs were banned, and umpires were told to put new baseballs into play more frequently. New balls were easier for batters to see because their bright white covers weren't yet covered with mud and grass stains. Batting helmets were required by both leagues in 1971. Helmets with protective ear flaps, the so-called Little League style, 3 years later. Batters began experimenting with various kinds of padding to protect shins and elbows, and some batters nowadays step into the box as if dressed for jousting. All this is both legal and understandable. But Major League Baseball has never done anything, not one single thing, to address the problem of injuries to pitchers who are struck by batted balls. The risk is small, but it is not negligible. I know of no pitcher who does not have his own tales of personal injuries or terrifying near misses as a baseball blows by his ear. Dizzy Dean had his toe broken by a line drive. Herb Score never fully recovered from being struck in the eye. A well-known picture of Nolan Ryan shows him standing on the mound. Blood splatters on his uniform. One way to calculate the risks of being a pitcher is to superimpose an imaginary grid on a vertical plane between batter and pitcher. Broken down into 1-foot squares, the grid bisects the mound, baselines extending from home plate toward first and third bases, and extends vertically to approximately 20 feet. Excluding foul balls and pop-ups, let us say then that a ball hit fair has an equal chance of striking any one of the 25-40 squares of the grid, 12 of which are occupied by the pitcher. That leaves 25-28 squares open, making the odds that a pitcher will be struck by any single batted ball less than 0.5%. Pretty good odds from a pitcher's point of view, but not negligible. For a soldier stationed in a combat zone like Iraq, bloggers calculated the risks of being wounded at a slightly similar ratio, less than 1%. And yet for some reason they call third base the hot corner. Some further numbers. Let's start with the number of times a pitcher throws to a batter in the course of a season. In high school, over the course of a typical 25 or 30 game season, a pitcher might throw 100 pitches per game for each of his 8 starts. That makes 800 per year, 2,400 over a 3-year high school career. College teams play much longer schedules, so the same player might average 10 starts a year, or 1,000 pitches a season, 4,000 for his 4 years of college ball. And those numbers don't count inter-squad scrimmages, summer ball, or fall baseball games. These days, every serious player plays almost year-round. So let's say that by the time he graduates from college, a pitcher will have experienced more than 10,000 times the absolute physical vulnerability that comes at the end of every single completed throw. Standing on one leg and falling to the side, glove hand down and temporarily useless, he waits for the ball that may be coming back at him at speeds up to 115 miles an hour. The book we're reading this week, Heart of the Game by S.L. Price, includes a sobering summary of the professional ball players who have been seriously injured and, on rare occasions, killed by baseballs. When it comes to some of the more common baseball injuries, bruises, broken fingers, smashed teeth, everybody thinks about the hazards of exposing oneself to a 95-mile-an-hour fastball. Those hazards are real. But the statistics, and baseball is the sport where the statistics carry nearly all the narrative weight, say otherwise. The greatest danger on the field is not being hit by a pitched ball, a ball which is thrown with amazing accuracy, and more important, a ball on which the batter's attention is fully focused. Far more dangerous is a batted ball. It comes off the bat with even greater velocity than it had when the pitcher released it, and it moves in a direction and on a trajectory no one can really predict. It's far more risky to be situated in the infield, or sitting in the front rows of the stands, for that matter, than to be standing in the batter's box, and to be on the pitcher's mound, less than 55 feet away from home plate at the finish of your delivery, is the most vulnerable spot of all. A ball with a bat exit speed of 110 miles an hour covers that distance in 0.34 seconds. John Asahina, a pitcher for the Tulsa Drillers, for whom Mike Coolbaugh, in our book this week, was coaching first base when he was killed by a batted ball, had been struck by a ball earlier that same season. "The ball got on top of me," Asahina said. "It gets on top of you so fast you can't even see it." That's probably true. A ball comes off a bat, especially a metal or composite bat, at speeds equal to or slightly better than the speed at which it was thrown. This means that a hard-hit fastball, batted straight up the middle, reaches the pitcher's mound in a little less than 4/10 of a second. Since the minimum time it takes the human brain and body to initiate a voluntary muscular response to a stimulus is understood to be 0.15 seconds. For example, runners' blocks in races are electronically set to disqualify a runner who pushes off less than 100 milliseconds, a tenth of a second after the start signal. Since the time the pitcher has to respond to a batted ball is so small, there's no room whatsoever for error or delay for a pitcher attempting to defend himself. Baseball pushes those who play it to the neurological threshold of human capabilities. And since there's no way for a pitcher to jump the gun, at best he has about 200 milliseconds, or 2/100ths of a second, to see the ball, to raise his glove, or duck. To frame this in another perspective, let's compare the pitcher's situation with an event where competitors draw a pistol from its holster and fire at a target. To do well in these world-class, fast-draw matches, players must draw their pistol, cock it, aim, and fire, all in about 6/10 of a second after a timing signal is given. The physical movements of hand and arm, in that case, are similar, both for a person drawing a gun from a holster and a pitcher bringing his glove hand up to protect himself. This means that if a pitcher wants to block or catch a ball coming at him, he must move with greater quickness than the world's best gunfighters. About 10,000 times over the course of a high school and college athletic career, in other words, a pitcher, in effect, gives the batter the benefit of drawing first. Small wonder comebackers, as those line drives back to the mound are called, small wonder comebackers are always caught by surprise. But let's not get carried away. The game of baseball overall has an enviable safety record. In a book called, ominously enough, Death at the Ballpark, author Robert Gorman compiled a record of all the deaths that have occurred during the long history of professional baseball games. According to Gorman's count, since 1869, there have been a total of 850 people killed while they were playing or watching baseball, about 6 deaths a year on average, for about a century and a half of games. That sounds serious, and you can't minimize it. It is serious, especially if you happen to be one of the unlucky players or spectators. But consider, 6 fatalities a year at a ballpark, compared to about 58 deaths annually in America from lightning strikes, 54 from bee or wasp stings, and 21 from attacks by dogs. Statistically speaking, you're probably safer at a baseball game than you are sipping a margarita in your backyard.
The preceding program is copyrighted by Emory University.